Epics. What do you first think about when you hear the word epic? Maybe you think of your favourite superhero, or a huge orchestra playing a song with a massive build-up to an even bigger drop. Well, that's not exactly right, but it definitely plays a part in what an epic is. The dictionary defines the word epic as a long poem, typically one derived from ancient oral tradition, narrating the deeds and adventures of heroic or legendary figures or the past history of a nation. Whether it be a low-budget film like Sins of Jezebel, or a $1 million blockbuster like the Lord of the Rings franchise, all epics are concerned with momentous events and larger-than-life characters. Some of the more well-known films in the genre include the likes of Braveheart, Troy, and The Last Samurai. These films are directed by some of the best and most respected directors in the film industry, Mel Gibson, Wolfgang Peterson, and Edward Zwick, respectively. Although these directors have made seemingly different films, they all have certain and particular characteristics that tie them together. This is in essence what a genre is. Braveheart, Troy, and The Last Samurai all centre around larger-than-life characters in conjunction with momentous events. For Braveheart, William Wallace is the medieval Scottish patriot who is spurred into revolt against the English when the love of his life is slaughtered. He leads an army on a war against England and threatens King Edward's throne before he is captured and executed, but not before becoming a symbol for a free Scotland. Troy. This is based upon Homer's Iliad, and this epic portrays the battle between the ancient kingdoms of Troy and Sparta, and King Agamemnon's crusade for power. The story of Troy is, from a large part, depicted from the tragic hero Achilles' perspective, and it's Achilles' story that is essentially at the core of Troy's storyline. The Last Samurai centers around Captain Nathan Algren, who is an American military officer hired by the Emperor of Japan to train the country's first army in the art of modern warfare. As the government attempts to eradicate the ancient samurai warrior class in preparation for more westernized and trade-friendly policies, Algren finds himself unexpectedly affected by his encounters with the samurai, which places him at the center of a struggle between two eras and two worlds. These films all depict a story in which there is a hero who finds himself at the center of a significant event. William Wallace, Achilles, and Captain Nathan Algren are all essentially the same character, who just so happen to find themselves in different events. The story always follows the hero. The momentous event is just the catalyst in order to facilitate the hero's journey. French filmmaker Jean Renoir once suggested that the marvelous thing about westerns is that they're all the same movie. This gives a director unlimited freedom. And I think that this can be said for epics as well. This brings us on to the question, can film directors be artists? Well, in order to answer this question, we need to first understand the auteur theory. The auteur theory originated from a French publication in 1954 of Cahiers du Cinéma, which loosely translates to Notes on Cinema. The auteur theory is the idea that the director is the author and primary creative force behind a movie. This theory is in direct conflict and ought to displace the tradition of criticism developed by the sequence and sight and sound writers. If someone else wrote it, then how could the director be the author? Well, the main logic behind this theory is that the end product of a movie is a result of the execution over just a written script. However, the auteur theory has had its fair share of criticism. Andrew Saris begs the question, How does the auteur theory differ from a straightforward theory of directors? And I tend to agree with him. The auteur theory seems to be one that takes away the credit from writers and gives it to the directors. Directors are already credited in an extremely high regard. However, you can't deny the fact that ideas such as the ones that the auteur theory present have furthered cinema in general. It's theories like these that have helped cinema and filmmaking evolve to what it is today. The genre of epic has had massive developments recently with the film of Wonder Woman. Traditionally, the hero role was always filled by a man. In all three of Braveheart, Troy and The Last Samurai, the larger-than-life character took on a male persona. Wonder Woman is not only a breakthrough for the epic and superhero genre, but for cinema as a collective. McWilliams cites that the greater the number of people who watch a television program or see a film, the more likely it is that a producer will try to replicate it. This is primarily what is responsible for maintaining or growing any genre. Whether or not this is good for flexible creativity is another discussion entirely. However, crediting a film director in a specific genre as an author who didn't initially write that piece of work is a slippery slope. Viewing directors' work this way is a complete neglect for the actual origin of the story that the audience is viewing. Although it's true that the directors play an undeniably crucial role, at the same time it's their interpretation of the story, so they shouldn't ever be credited with the title of author. It goes against what a director is. In a sense, their role is to bring the story from the paper to the screen. So why would they be credited with the initial conception of the paper? Having said this, some parts of the auteur theory are viable and work in conjunction with the initial genre ideologies. Directors are the primary driving force behind a story. There is no escaping that fact. They're involved in every part of a film's production and are responsible for the end product. However, they are simply not authors. And this is essentially the downfall of the auteur theory. Gibson, Peterson and Zwick have created films that are intertwined and connected with the same themes and concepts on a profound level. There is no refute that these films are associated with the same genre. However, that same genre, just like every other aspect of cinema today, is changing, and looking at them through the logic of theories like the auteur theory is simply an outdated way of thinking.